Hi, my name is Christy Tolan, and I'm going to be doing my presentation on the Infancy Gospel of Thomas. For the summary is the Infancy Gospel of Thomas stands apart from the canonical Gospels. It presents a narrative that explores the childhood of Jesus with a blend of the miraculous and the mundane. The apocryphal text, believed to be composed in the 2nd century, delves into the early years of Jesus Christ, an aspect largely untouched by the canonical Gospels. Through various episodes, the text offers insights into both the extraordinary powers and the developmental stages of young Jesus. At the forefront of this narrative is the depiction of Jesus as a child imbued with divine power, yet struggling with human emotions and behavior. The Gospel begins with Jesus at the age of 5, engaged in playing near a stream of water. In this scene, Jesus exhibits his divine ability by forming 12 sparrows out of mud. When reprimanded by a bystander for working on the Sabbath, Jesus commands the sparrows to fly away, showcasing his dominion over creation. This opening tale sets the tone for the dual nature of the stories, merging the divine with the human, a theme carried throughout the text. Another notable aspect is Jesus' interactions with his peers and teachers. In several instances, the narrative underscores his superiority, often through confrontations that highlight his precocious wisdom and power. For example, when another child accidentally disturbs his playing, Jesus responds with lethal rebuke, an act that is later mitigated by his subsequent act of reviving the fallen child. This portrayal demonstrates a Jesus who grapples with his own abilities while still learning the boundaries of human social interaction, reflecting an early stage of moral development. Which I just don't think, if you look at psychologically, if this were a true story, he just didn't know the strength of his own powers. Educational settings in the text further illustrate Jesus' miraculous nature. In one encounter, Jesus is taken to school to learn the alphabet. However, instead of conforming to the educational structure, he questions the teacher's understanding, ultimately demonstrating an unparalleled grasp of the letters and their intrinsic meanings. Through this narrative, the text highlights his divine wisdom, outstripping any human learning and emphasizing his innate divinity already present in childhood. The Infancy Gospel of Thomas not only explores Jesus' childhood miracles, but also serves as a reflection on his relationship with his family. The episodes involving his earthly parents, Mary and Joseph, often illuminate the parental challenges in understanding and nurturing a child possessing such divine capabilities. Joseph's interventions in times of conflict and Mary's roles in mediating situations present a familial context trying to cope with raising the Son of God. Despite the miraculous elements, certain episodes within the Gospels seek to show a developmental arc in Jesus' life. For instance, as Jesus matures, there is a noticeable shift towards acts of kindness and healing, suggesting a progression from the more impulsive behaviors of his early years. One story recounts Jesus healing a boy who had cut his foot with an axe, an act which not only restores life but also symbolizes growing compassion and responsibility towards others. The gospel concludes with Jesus demonstrating his divine nature through increasingly benevolent actions, signaling a maturation of understanding and control over his abilities. The narrative arc of the infancy gospel of Thomas presents a Jesus who transitions from childlike spontaneity to a deeper alignment with his divine purpose, suggesting an early foreshadowing of the compassionate figure revered in his later life. Overall, the infancy gospel of Thomas offers a fascinating exploration of the divine mingling with the everyday, presenting stories that resonate with curiosity about the lesser known years of a figure central to Christianity. While not considered canonical, this gospel enriches the tapestry of Christian storytelling by pondering the implications of divinity within childhood's framework and providing insights that spur theological and literary discussions. Question 1. How does the infancy gospel of Thomas present Jesus according to the textbook? In Simon Gathercole's textbook, The Non-Canonical Gospels, the infancy gospel of Thomas is presented as captivating, albeit non-canonical, account of Jesus' early years. This text diverges from the New Testament by depicting a young Jesus endowed with extraordinary powers, which he occasionally uses in ways that seem capricious or even troublesome. Instead of gratifying conventional expectations of childhood behavior, this portrayal of Jesus shows him performing acts that are both miraculous and at times unsettling, such as inflicting harm or reversing death, not to impart lessons, but rather as a display of innate divine power. Foster's analysis suggests that the infancy gospel of Thomas seeks to explore the divine nature of Jesus even as a child, providing a narrative framework that highlights his unique identity and mission. The child Jesus in this gospel is less constrained by worldly norms and more reflective of an embryonic divine essence, navigating the boundaries of human experience. Importantly, this portrayal raises theological questions about the nature and purpose of Jesus' incarnation, an exploration missing from canonical texts that focus predominantly on his adult life. Also, Foster suggests that these stories may have been crafted to satisfy early Christian communities' curiosity about Jesus' life stages, glossed over by canonical accounts. These episodes, while startling, contribute to a broader understanding of how different traditions sought to articulate the complexities and wonder of Jesus' dual nature as both fully divine and fully human. Overall, the infancy gospel of Thomas accentuates a Jesus who is compellingly complex, blending omnipotence with the naivety and impulsiveness typical of childhood, enriching the tapestry of early Christian narrative tradition. Question 2 is how does the gospel present the disciples and discipleship? Using Foster's non-canonical Gospels book, rather than focusing extensively on the disciples' lives as the canonical Gospels do, this text presents scenes that indirectly influence our understanding of discipleship. In Foster's examination of this gospel in his book on non-canonical Gospels, he highlights several key ways in which discipleship and the role of followers are characterized differently than in the canonical narratives. For instance, the portrayal of young Jesus demonstrates his extraordinary powers and knowledge, which serve as a foundation for understanding his later adult ministry, something that would inherently demand admiration and faith from potential disciples. Those around young Jesus, such as his family and neighbors, are depicted as reacting with a mix of awe and confusion, showcasing a dynamic of recognition and misunderstanding among the earliest followers. Foster suggests that discipleship in the infancy gospel of Thomas is less about formal teaching and more about witnessing and experiencing the divine nature of Jesus firsthand. This suggests a model of discipleship focused more on the acknowledgement of Jesus' inherent divinity than on the learning and spreading of specific teachings, which contrasts markedly with the later emphasis on teaching in the canonical Gospels. Also, Foster describes how the lack of traditional disciples around the young Jesus emphasizes the uniqueness of his character rather than a traditional rabbi-student dynamic. Instead of following Jesus because of his teachings or moral lessons, individuals are compelled by the direct evidence of his supernatural abilities. This perspective could contribute to the understanding of the foundations of faith, suggesting that early discipleship was rooted in experiencing Jesus' miraculous life rather than solely through didactic instruction. Foster's analysis provides a nuanced view of discipleship as presented in the infancy Gospel of Thomas, highlighting the extraordinary figure of Jesus as a focal point that naturally attracted followers due to his divine acts and presence. How does the infancy Gospel of Thomas relate to the canonical Gospels? The infancy Gospel of Thomas is an apocryphal text that is not included in the canonical Bible, yet it often offers intriguing insights into early Christian thought and the perception of Jesus. This Gospel focuses on the childhood of Jesus, presenting stories about his early years that are not found in the canonical Gospels. The stories in the infancy Gospel of Thomas depict Jesus as possessing divine power even in his childhood, often performing miraculous acts. One of the most notable aspects of this text is its portrayal of Jesus as both divine and human, reflected in the duality of his actions. For instance, the Gospel includes stories where Jesus performs miracles that are benevolent, such as bringing clay birds to life, but it also includes accounts of actions that seem harsh or vengeful. This duality contributes to understanding the dual nature of Jesus as both God and man, a theme that is central to the canonical Gospels as well. In comparison, the canonical Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, focus largely on the ministry, crucifixion, and resurrection of Jesus rather than his childhood. Only in the Gospel of Luke do we find a brief account of Jesus' early life, specifically the story of 12-year-old Jesus in the temple. This passage highlights Jesus' wisdom and divine nature, but unlike the infancy Gospel of Thomas, it does not delve into his miraculous abilities as a child. The emphasis on Jesus' wisdom and divinity from a young age in both texts helps reinforce the notion of Jesus as the Son of God, an important element in Christian belief. The infancy Gospel of Thomas complements this by providing imaginative elaborations on Jesus' childhood, albeit not considered canonical or doctrinal by mainstream Christianity. Additionally, the infancy Gospel of Thomas, through its various narratives, reflects the Christian community's attempts to fill gaps left by the canonical Gospels regarding Jesus' early life. However, the nature of some stories within the infancy Gospel of Thomas might have led to its exclusion from the canonical Gospels, as they could be seen as inconsistent with the portrayal of Jesus found in the more widely accepted texts. Thank you.